The Catalan independence movement is a social and political movement with roots in Catalan nationalism, which seeks the independence of Catalonia from Spain, along with some in the movement supporting the independence of North Catalonia from France and that of other Catalan countries. The beginnings of popular separatism in Catalonia can be traced back to the mid-19th century. About 1 century after the loss of the Catalan constitutions, when the country fell under the rule of the Bourbon dynasty and its historical institutions were annulled. From the 1850s onwards, various individuals and organizations demanded full independence of Catalonia from Spain. The first organized Catalan independence party was Estat Català, founded in 1922 by Francesc Macià. In 1931, Estat Català and other parties formed Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya. Macià proclaimed a Catalan republic in 1931, subsequently accepting autonomy within the Spanish state after negotiations with the leaders of the Second Spanish Republic. During the Spanish Civil War, General Francisco Franco abolished Catalan autonomy in 1938. Following Franco's death in 1975, Catalan political parties concentrated on autonomy rather than independence. The contemporary independence movement began around 2009, after the Partido Popular challenged the 2006 Statute of Autonomy in the Constitutional Court of Spain. Catalan municipalities held symbolic referendums on independence between 2009 and 2011. The 2010 ruling of the court that the statute was unconstitutional sparked huge protests, and a snap election in 2012 led to the first pro-independence majority ever in the Catalan Parliament. The new government held a non-binding self-determination referendum in 2014, which yielded a large majority in favor of independence, but with a low turnout due to boycotting by anti-independence voters. A further election in 2015 was followed by the calling of a new binding referendum, deemed illegal by the Spanish government and Constitutional Court. The referendum was held in 2017, despite a police action aimed at stopping it, which included raiding voting stations and the use of rubber bullets. Amidst large protests, negotiations to bring an end to the impasse between the Catalan and Spanish governments did not come to fruition, and the Catalan parliament approved a motion creating an independent republic. The parliamentary leaders were then arrested, with some leaders including then-President Carles Puigdemont fleeing abroad. In 2019, the new Spanish government agreed to hold a table of negotiations with the government of Catalonia, though refusing beforehand to consider independence or self-determination. In 2020, the Spanish government began processing a request for the pardon of the arrested leaders. In the Parliament of Catalonia, parties explicitly supporting independence are Together for Catalonia, Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya, People's Party, and the Partit dels Socialists de Catalunya. En Podem supports federalism and a legal and agreed referendum. The Principality of Catalonia was an entity of the Crown of Aragon, created by the dynastic union of the County of Barcelona and the Kingdom of Aragon in 1137. In the late 15th century, Aragon united by marriage with the Crown of Castile to form what would later become Kingdom of Spain. Initially, the various entities of the Crown of Aragon, including Catalonia, kept their own feuars and political institutions as guarantee of their sovereignty, for which they fought a civil war during the actual union of the crowns, known as the Catalan Civil War between Foralists and Royalists. In 1640, during the 30 Years' War and Franco-Spanish War, Catalan peasants revolted, starting the Reapers' War. The following year, the Catalan government succeeded, establishing the independence of the Principality, called France for protection, and finally named Louis XIII Count of Barcelona. After a decade of war, the Spanish monarchy counter-attacked in 1652 and recovered Barcelona and the rest of Catalonia, except for Roussillon, which was annexed by France. Catalonia retained its feuars. During the War of Spanish Succession, most of the territories of the Crown of Aragon, including Catalonia, fiercely supported Archduke Charles, the Habsburg contender, who swore the Catalan constitutions, against the Bourbon contender, who would later abolish the Catalan constitutions and political institutions through the Nueva Planta decrees. The Habsburgs' English allies withdrew from the war with the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713. And shortly thereafter, Habsburg troops were evacuated from Italy and from Spain. This left the Catalan government isolated. But it remained loyal to Charles. After a 14-month siege, Barcelona surrendered to a Bourbon army on the 11th of September 1714. The end of the war was followed by the loss of the fueras of all Crown of Aragon territories, including Catalonia, and the imposition of the Nueva Planta decrees, which Son.